Hi, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to Philosophy Insights. In this video, Professor Tom DiLorenzo, an economics professor with 32 years of experience, shares a rare insider's perspective on why modern universities are failing.
The widespread belief in academia today in the United States that only the oppressed deserve tolerance and free speech and academic freedom. That's why when they wage these malicious and vicious campaigns of libel and slander against campus speakers with whom they oppose, they think they're doing the morally righteous thing. Because if someone like me shows up at an Ivy League school and they organize a protest or shout me down, or the campus police have to come in, or ruin the event. They think that's the morally righteous thing to do because I'm a spokesman for the oppressor class, and I'm going to criticize the oppressed. And that was one of Marcuse's ideas. And he also said that students especially must be indoctrinated in this type of thinking, that only the oppressed deserve free speech. That's how we can overturn the status quo. And I see all of this fully in place at so many American universities these days. This all comes from this character, Herbert Marcuse. Another person who I call the high priestess of cultural Marxism is a woman named Catherine McKinnon, who's a law professor at the University of Southern California. At least she was last time I looked her up on the web. Who knows? We academics are sort of like nomads sometimes and skip around different places. And she's known for the view that it has been embraced by a lot of universities that dissenting views can create a hostile work environment. And if you create a hostile work environment for your coworkers that is so hostile that they're incapable of performing their job, then you can be fired. That's the new thing. And I was warned about this myself by Timothy Snyder, the academic vice president I mentioned at the beginning, after the president of my university maliciously libeled Walter Block, my friend Walter Block, in a speech he gave at my university years ago. I set up a meeting with Snyder to talk about this, and I in the meantime, after Walter was libeled, which I'll explain in a few minutes. What the university didn't understand was that one of my very good friends in Baltimore was the radio talk show host, the late Ron Smith, who had a 3-hour talk show, drive time, 3 to 6 every day. And it was broadcast all the way up to New York and Connecticut. It was a big radio station. And Ron had Walter and me on for 6 hours, just lambasting and destroying these people in their antics. And so the academic vice president wanted to talk to me about this, and he told me that all this was creating a hostile work environment, and I told him, and my response was that I'm the one who now has the hostile work environment, and it's because of you. That's exactly what I told him. The day before this happened, I had a good work environment, but now the whole university was in an uproar over Walter's trivial comments that were blown up into something evil. But I'll explain that in a little bit. And so dissenting views create a hostile work environment. So essentially what she's saying is that you should teach your children, sticks and stones will break my bones, but names and words are even worse. So that's the new motto that we should teach. And another trick that the academic bureaucrats use, and they used this at my university during this whole fiasco with Walter Block, was to make grandiose speeches in favor of academic freedom. So they'll get the president or the academic vice president or somebody like that to make a speech or issue an article in the student newspaper about their everlasting devotion to academic freedom and free speech, as they crush academic freedom and free speech among those who disagree with their extreme left-wing crazy views of political correctness. And they've developed the tactic that no student should ever hear anything that is insensitive or may hurt his or her feelings. It's the infantilization of college students is the business American universities are in these days as a result. Even the New York Times has protested this, if you can believe that. In an article on March 21st of this year in the New York Times was about some things that have been going on at Brown University. Brown University is one of the universities that has led the way in politically correct insanity. And what they do, if a controversial speaker is about to show up, if God forbid Tom Woods would ever be invited to Brown University, this is what might happen. They set up what's called a safe room. Safe room. You go to this room and you can feel safe from Tom, from whatever Tom would have to say. Okay, and this is from the New York Times. I'm reading this. And what is in this safe room? So students can say, oh my God, Tom Woods is coming to campus. I better head for the safe room. Lock the door. I'm not making this up. This is from the New York Times. There are cookies, coloring books, Play-Doh, calming music, pillows, blankets, videos of frolicking puppies. She likes it. And of course, trauma experts. They got trauma experts. So, New York Times, March 21st of this year, trauma experts. Just in case some dissenting views. And of course, the faculty are now taught that if there's anything controversial on your syllabus, that the students are asked to read, put a trigger warning on it. Warning. Something might be insensitive here. Of course, this doesn't apply to all the left-wing claptrap that they read. If you sign the Communist Manifesto or Das Kapital, you don't need a trigger warning for that. What could be controversial about that? Nothing. And so the academic left has adopted all kinds of mascots. And you can never criticize anything a mascot says or does, and if anything that you say can be construed however remotely to be critical of one of the mascots, well then you will be branded as a racist, a sexist, a homophobe, and on and on and on. These are the tools of the libeler, and you've all heard examples of this, I guess. Our friend Hans Hoppe, who was mentioned earlier, giving a lecture to an economics class at UNLV, where he taught for 20 years, and he was giving a lecture on time preference. And he was giving examples of a high time preference, of the type of people who don't save very much for the future and who spend a lot more of their money now. And he had a long list of the type of people that you might expect. Elderly people who have already put their kids through school and so forth. They're not saving a lot anymore. People who never had children, they're not saving for their children's education because they never had children. There was an international letter writing campaign on Hans's behalf. Even the Secretary of State of Italy wrote a letter to who Hans knows, wrote a letter to the UNLV administration telling them to, cut it out. This is ridiculous. And but it didn't matter. It didn't matter. It was all they thought they could get him because of his economic views. This had nothing to do with what Hans said in that one class. They were out. Murray Rothbard was gone by this time. He taught at UNLV also, but Hans was the one outlier. He was the one dissenter that they just could not tolerate having him there. And with the Walter Block fiasco at my university, Walter gave a very mainstream talk on the economics of discrimination. It's a very simple theory. It says basically, if I'm a misogynist, I hate women, and I have an accounting firm, and I have a male and a female employee, and they can both create $100,000 a year for me in revenue with all their billing, so they're equally qualified. Okay, I pay the man $90,000 a year, and I pay the woman $50,000 a year because I'm discriminating. Well, I create a profit opportunity for my competitors who can hire the woman away at 60, and they still make a $40,000 a year profit because she can generate $100,000 in revenue. And then somebody else will hire her away at 70 or 80. And that's how competition in the marketplace dilutes the effect of discrimination. It doesn't eliminate it. You know, people have been discriminating against each other for thousands of years in one way or another, but that's how the market penalizes racial discrimination or sex discrimination in the job place. That's all he said. And again, one student was sent there. It was all a setup. He was sent there to try to detect something insensitive. And so he went to the cultural Marxist gang on campus. Not me. I was the sponsor of the lecture. He went to the cultural Marxist gang and said it was insensitive, you know, what Walter Block was. And then, so the president of the university sent out an email to all faculty, staff, students, and alumni apologizing for the insensitive remark that was made, but he never said what the remark was that was made. And so that's how they operate. That's how they operate. But Walter and I prevailed in the end. We went on the radio for 6 hours. We wrote dozens of articles on LewRockwell.com, so much so that one of my students told me that the administration sent a memo to students saying, don't read LewRockwell.com. It's a hate speech thing. And of course, that guaranteed that every single student would look up LewRockwell.com, didn't it? So Lew probably has hundreds of additional readers as a result of this.
As Professor DiLorenzo's experience shows, the challenges facing universities today are not accidental. They're a result of decades of shifting priorities and growing bureaucracy. For more discussions like this, subscribe and hit the bell.